All right, everybody, and we are back. I want to welcome Cathy Reed. Welcome, Cathy.
Hi, everybody.
And Cathy has one of the most amazing, remarkable stories just based on the journey that she's been on. And she's like a hero. You know, she just is courageous and she marches to the beat of her own drum. And I've been waiting to do this for such a long time, and I'm glad we're going to finally get to do this. So let's get into it. All right, Cathy. So tell us about what you're doing, currently, what you did. You got so much good stuff going on.
Yeah, so much is going on. So I believe today I move into this incredible dance studio. So Dance Your Story took a short hiatus as I'm moving into
Hold
a
on.
bigger.
Dance Your Story is your platform.
That was like a my brain fart that happened almost 6 months ago, and I was like, I want to dance every day and post a dance every day for 1 year. And so that commitment was big, but it had to be modified a little bit as I moved from Indonesia back to the U.S. And so it's now coming back online as far as dance 168 all the way to a year. So there's like a couple weeks there where I was offline.
Right. So you're 168 days in out of
Yeah.
365. That'll be the finale will be day 365, right?
Yeah.
And every day. So what's the point of what you're doing when you do this? What is it that you're trying to get across?
It's amazing because at first I didn't know. Now I do know. The point is to feel. And the point is to be willing to feel the truth. Whatever is in my body, movement and music, and this is not just for me, it's for everybody, it helps it come to the surface. So when I dance on a daily basis, it's almost a catharsis and a discovery process and a transformative process.
Yeah.
That's the point, yeah.
Now, I remember talking with you many times about when you were beginning this. And what have you learned so far about yourself in doing this?
Oh man. So really it helped bring me back to core truth. Um, a soul purpose. Help me remember soul purpose, and connect to that part of myself. So that's in all of us. And we get far removed from our own truth, when just growing up, just being a human being. So it's a whole remembering process.
Yeah. But the expression, I mean, and I followed a lot of this dancing. I don't catch every single day, but I catch, probably at least 3 out of 4 days. And I watch how much you've evolved just in your comfortability, in your expression. I mean, that alone, I mean, if you look back to your first like couple of weeks, I can only imagine where you're going to be your last couple of weeks. I mean, it's such a remarkable, and that just goes to, that's a tribute to you putting in the time and staying true to your commitment of doing it every day. See what happens. Like you were so like, I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm going to do it.
Right. Yeah. It's been such an unfolding process, and every month, every week, it seems like another layer comes off. And right now, I'm noticing as I get ready to return to the dance floor, what's in my mind is, I wish I was like this dancer on TV that I saw the other day. I wish I was more technically correct. I wish. So I can see this like dissatisfaction that's in my body is rising to the surface for me to look at those thoughts and say, okay, but that is not reality. I'm not a ballerina. So can I accept myself the way that I do dance? is that okay? Is that okay? I have to ask myself. And basically, these thoughts then that would be coming from self hatred or dissatisfaction or self criticism, um, they've risen to the surface. I'm getting ready to address something in my body and bring self love to the table for myself to say, okay, these women are so beautiful. They've trained lifetime to dance the way they do, but that's not me. I'm okay. Am I still okay with being me? So am I good enough? It's a good enough question. So yeah, it's this unfolding process, and it doesn't stop. It's like I'm like, am I done yet? Nope.
Some of your dances, they're so seductive and so provocative. They're beautiful. But with that being said, what's really happening to you as you're doing this is an internal process that you're coming to terms with. Can you talk about that?
The first, I want to say 150, 160 dances, something like that, were non-sexual because I was holding it down. I was ashamed or afraid to, if I felt my hips moving too much and that looked too sexy, I would put a cap on that. But as I continued to unfold, um, I realized that my personal sexuality, like just all human beings, is just such an innate part of us. And it was rising to the surface. Uh, but I just went through a lot of unfolding around issues of censorship, censoring myself, like um, questioning sexual expression. Like, is it okay? Like, what does this mean? You know? But I kept doing it and uh, let it be a discovery process instead of something I just like was like, no, that's wrong. No, I didn't do that.
But you know what, Kathy? There's one thing to discover. There's another thing to discover yourself in front of the whole world, or in front of whoever's going to see what you post. And when you put it out to the universe, it might be seen by millions. It might be seen by 20. Whatever it is. But you're putting it out to the universe. So what you're doing is really opening yourself up, being really vulnerable with your process. And in other words, I'm saying that I commend you for doing it because it's way more courageous than just like if you were in a room dancing by yourself, that would be great. You would be kind of challenging yourself that way. But what you're doing is on a much grander scale. It's much greater. It's much more frightening. It's much more exposing of you, and I mean you. I don't mean that even though
Yeah, I know what
the
you mean.
dance, it is discovering your sexuality in a sense, but it's exposing you and your soul. There's so much about you. The depth is there. That's why, you know, I was drawn to talk and learn as much as I could about you because your depth is certainly there. There's no doubt about that. You're really, if something intrigues you, you're gonna answer that question somehow. You're gonna get to it, and that's really remarkable about you.
I know this just came to mind, but um, I had a therapist years ago ask me that I said, "How did you do it?" And what he meant was, "How did you become a functional human being in this world with the adverse conditions I grew up in? How did that happen? It's unusual." And I remember telling him and remembering this like core belief in myself from really young, so that regardless of what everything was going on outside me or whatever anyone else said, I really liked myself. And I really had some seed of self love. And now there's a difference between a masking of arrogance or fear, of this bravado. No, it was actually truly like I thought I was okay. And I mean, that was carried with me of that when people would say, "Oh, how wow, you're doing this in front of the whole world." There's part of me also that knows I'm just like everybody else. I'm not doing something that isn't a part of everybody. And
No,
I
no, but
speak the
most
same
people don't.
language.
No, most people can't get that vulnerable. That's why I'm saying I commend you for this. I
Yeah,
say it only out of respect. I mean,
yeah.
it's not going to be received the same by everybody. Obviously, the
Oh
conditioning.
no.
Yeah, I can only admit we'll get there too. I mean, we got a lot of stuff to cover here, man.
Oh,
Oh my god!
that's good. Yeah.
But here's the thing, yet it takes a lot. It takes a really lot of strength and courage to actually just put yourself out there. And when professional athletes or professional dancers like ballerinas, they don't just get on the stage and start dancing, at the New York City Ballet. No, there's years of training and preparing, and you just got out there and you says, I'm doing my thing, and and I'm gonna fall, or I'm gonna soar like a bird, or I'm gonna do anything in between, and you're gonna see it all. I mean, who does that? It's amazing.
I think kids do that, right? They don't care. They're going to go out and dance in the aisle of the grocery store because I think part of my psyche has a child self aspect to it that it's possible got frozen. Now, sometimes if you have a child self inside of you, our inner child, that can be problematic and you want to mature. But there are parts of inner child that will set us free.
Yep,
And
I
so the
agree.
part of mine that got frozen was that kid dancing in the grocery store and didn't think about it. Or they're like, who cares? So it did come, that was one of the benefits to maybe.
The difference between being that childlike and being that childlike with the experiences that you have is you're not naive now. Back then, we were ignorant at whatever age you're talking about, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. We don't know better. So yeah, dance here because you just, you're following an instinct. Now you have like a lot of experience there. And now you're going back deliberately to that childlike place to get rid of a lot of the conditioning, but it's not the same as being that. So it's actually there's a lot of work that you have to do to get that free.
Well, I also was blessed with the adversity. Like when your family, your church, your community doesn't like you from day one, then the gift from this is that you never had acceptance in the first place to break away from. What there was none. So I was not well received growing up. And so once we receive ourselves and we give ourselves the approval, that's what really matters. And it was, I believe, easier for me to give it to myself because I was losing nothing. I lost nothing. And that is incredible. Yeah, now I see the benefit.
Yeah. But you know what? I just wanted to throw this in before we go right back to the beginning, all the way back to the beginning. Is that you see the benefit now? Yeah, but only because you're doing what you're doing. Like you can see a clear vision of the picture now because you're doing a lot of work. You're doing a lot of self disclosure, a lot of self introspection. You're really digging deep, and that's why you can see things as clear as you can right now. I think.
Yeah. And all those years, like all the pain that led to lessons or enlightenment or whatever you want to call it, that I was given some knowledge because of whatever experience I faced, I had always kept to myself. So I had this intense body of wisdom inside of me and this intense weight of knowledge and was not sharing it in any way whatsoever. I would literally just be quiet and just pretend to agree with the people around me. Um, so this process helped loosen my voice. And I know movement, the dance was directly responsible for helping me to speak again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and bravo for that. Let's go back to the beginning because your mom has her own legend. But why don't you tell everybody who your mom is?
God bless this. I just love her so much. So what a beautiful soul. So her name is Antoinette Catalano. In the 60s, she had a nickname given to her by I don't know which rock star or whatever, but it was Little Annie. And she was a very tiny woman, very little, short, and she had a very, very big personality. So big that she ended up in strange places, like Woodstock or on stage with the Rolling Stones or something of this nature. She was just a woman who I think had the same sort of live out loud mentality and say what you want, do what you want. She attracted quite a bit of love and attention from musicians. So she was Jimi Hendrix's girlfriend for a long time, and he names her by name in one of his songs, Little
Mm-hmm.
Annie. And she was a muse, to quite a few notable rock stars, and was kind of just part of the entourage that just was around. She was always around. So I didn't, just kind of found that out later in life.
Right. So what happened? I mean, you didn't meet your mom, did you?
Never met her in my life. That's a crazy story. So how the web of higher self, of spirit, whatever, like gives us all these opportunities. But no, I never met her. But we have so many crossovers. So I was, she would go on whatever, live her life, get pregnant, be wherever she happened to be, and have that baby and leave the baby, give it up for adoption. And so I was born in Honolulu. I have another sister from Queens, New York. I have another sister who's born in Bay Area. So we all have different accents, different fathers. There was more kids, but we're the last left alive. And so she would basically, leave these flower kids, flower children, and go on. So we got adopted by, made into different families, basically, raised all separately. And I wouldn't find out who she was until I was in my late 20s, possibly mid 20s.
So
But
just like a couple of years ago.
yeah, right. Yeah, my 21st birthday. Yep. So yeah, we started finding, at that time the sisters started working together to get the information, and when we finally could get a name and a face to a person, then that's when the information started pouring out. Her diaries were returned to us. Videos came out we found on YouTube, like with her and Grateful Dead. I don't know, just a lot of different bands and stories about her, newspaper articles, and we started seeing the formation of a life through these documentation photos, even mugshots, even incarceration. It's like this is all this information is telling us who our mother was, and some of it was
What's that
just
like
so
finding that
overwhelming.
out and
What
finding out like so much later in life, and then it's pretty shocking stuff to find,
it was.
yeah. What was it like?
Uh, I didn't know how to hold it. I didn't know how to hold the gifts that she get was bringing to me as a human being till now. I didn't have a clue, man. So what I did was I took all this information, such beautiful writing, such incredible photographs, and I put them in a box and I walked away for years. In fact, I almost dumped it all. I just didn't know what to do. So I couldn't process it. Nobody could help me process what does this mean, right?
Yeah, I mean, wow. I mean, I'm trying to process what you're just saying right now. I can't imagine being in your shoes.
It gets weirder. It gets weirder. So I was working at the strip club in my 20s. I meet this man, total stranger, and he asked me like, "Oh, why are you in Hawaii?" I was really there because I was still looking for my birth mother. We didn't know, you know, we didn't have the
This
information
is
yet.
before you
Stuff.
found anything out.
Really, yeah, I was in the midst of it. And he says, that sounds familiar. I think I know her. Turns out, and I'd later go on to marry this guy, have 2 children with him. Turns out he was her neighbor and was her friend while she was pregnant with me. So they lost touch during that pregnancy. But when we did the timeline, I'm like, that was me. That's so crazy. He's a little older than me. So, anyways, that these little strange spiritual crossovers, like I call them webs, like spiritual webs, where you see soul groups coming together, and we don't know why we're together. We don't know what we need to accomplish. I do now, but there's a higher order you can see.
But Kathy, when you're younger and not as evolved as you are now, I'm sure there's the normal steps and phases that you go through? Like, did you have the resentment towards your mom for not being there? Did you have these, normal reactionary feelings to this whole process? Even like earlier in life, like as you're growing up, where is she? How come I haven't heard from her or anything like that? I mean, what,
Yeah.
was that did that all affect you in some way? And
Yeah. So a lot of it was subconscious, but some was conscious. Like, for instance, I looked out the window a lot growing up, and I was kind of a spacey kid. But what I was doing that I couldn't tell, let's say, my adopted parents. They're like, "What are you doing? Get out of the window!" I was actually waiting for her to return. I knew I was adopted. I knew that I had a mother out there. And you know how children are kind
and
of
you were not able
fantastic.
to talk to your step parents about this, or your
No,
your adopted
no,
parents about this?
no. I don't know if I was all the way. I couldn't talk about it at all. So it was this innate longing for her to come and make things right. You know, a childhood wish
Yep.
that I could be rescued. So that's what it was. It was like, someone get me out of here. And then having this fantasy made up in my head that someone will rescue me. Well, it would be till now, to be like, that's what our job is to do. You grow up and you rescue your own inner child.
Yeah.
But so that was the kind of the melancholy kid I was a lot of the times, deep down, waiting for this mother figure to return that never came. So at
Yeah.
15, I a light bulb went on and it said she's never coming. And I took a dive emotionally. And my behavior, oh Scott, it showed the kind of this unraveling of a mind as far as teenage acting out. But it was this hopelessness set in. And I started challenging any rules possible, every rule
Of
possible.
course. Yeah.
Yeah. I was pissed off too.
I
I
mean,
was definitely mad.
I would think it would be abnormal if you didn't, right?
Yeah, I think so too. That would be weird. Um, and I just tried to navigate for the rest of another 25 years past,
So let's stay on this for a minute, like with your mom. Whenever I've spoken to you about her, you really honor her. You're in a really good place with who she is now. You accept that a lot of the gifts of who you are a result of being her daughter,
Yeah.
right? You just your DNA alone, like, but it seems like you don't have that resentment, that chip on your shoulder, that with that angst that to this day is still left unfulfilled because you never did meet her, you never did were able to resolve those things, but you can still come to terms with it at some point, which I feel you have.
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, is I do feel her around spiritually at always. And the more I own my gifts, the more I accept myself, the more I feel her presence in my life. And so I don't feel lost anymore.
Mm.
So that's a big part of it. I don't feel the loss. As far as coming to terms, with this family history, uh, now that's just been a freaking process of playing hide and seek with myself, and going through this kind of pickup sticks, owning all of who you are, like bring it all to the table, and just, it's like, I want this part of me. I don't like that part. I would like this part of my mom. Oh no, I don't want to talk about when she went to jail, but I do like it that she was Jimi Hendrix's girlfriend, so I'll talk about that, but not that she was homeless. So it was a real sifting and coming to a point where, okay, no one's all bad, no one's all good. Don't demonize, don't deify. We're just human beings. That means I have her mug shots, and that used to really like frighten and embarrass me. You know, I have all these pictures of mommy, but she's in jail. Like, what is this? And then I have these beautiful memories and pictures of her with these rock stars, and she's just so beautiful and so like a goddess, right? And I have to reconcile these two images in my own mind that they are both her, and
Well, I mean,
it's true for all of us.
a beautiful woman can be flawed, I mean, so whatever the flaws are, I mean, you have them, I have them. we all have our flaws, right? So the thing is that we as a society or as, people, we put other people on these pedestals, right? And kind of give them more than they do. We make them stars or like politicians or whoever they are, man. We make them like they're more than. At the end of the day, we're all like we might think so and so has got this glamorous life, right? Wonder what their kids think, like that. You know what I mean? Like because
Yeah.
that family, whatever that family dynamic is, if a family, all families are different, but there's always these, you know, issues that happen behind closed doors and stuff that, so everybody, we're all just human beings, man. And, so like your mom, for you to come to terms with that is like, I mean, it's got to be difficult because we just grow up in it. You had to learn about it after you've grown up.
Right.
Yeah. And
And
then there's all
yeah,
this notoriety that comes with who she was. And there's that, like the glamour and the darkness.
yeah.
you know so in saying that is what I just wanted to like jump a little bit here too, because I think what's one thing that's really cool about you is the way you embrace your own darkness. You embrace it, you do.
Yeah.
Like you want to know it, you want to understand it, and
And what I
knowing it
learned is
thoroughly.
I learned that we cannot accept someone else's pain, duality, darkness, whatever, until we accept our own. So what was happening simultaneously as I accepted all aspects of my mother's life, ownership, and kind of work through the embarrassment, the shame of what I think that looks like on me.
Hmm.
Simultaneously, I was accepting myself. So I didn't know that I was able that by that act, I'm actually healing my own duality. So that means um, I can parade around that I'm really good at Bible trivia because I spent so many years in Sunday school with this adopted family. I want to focus on that, or I want to focus on these nice things about my life. But I no longer have to hide. Well, I actually was a career exotic dancer, a stripper as well. That's okay too, and that's when we accept. I'll just use personally when I accepted myself as a total human being. That means dark and light,
Hmm.
and I don't have to be afraid or ashamed of any aspect of this or apologize for any of it. I start getting more vibrant and more free just to speak the truth, my perspective, the way I see this world, the way it looks like to me. So this process, mom, uh, really integrating her memory in a way it's holistic. So not saying, oh, she was the most beautiful woman, she partied with rock stars, or or the other part, oh, she was in jail a lot in mental institutions and alcoholic. Which is it? It's both.
It's all of it,
So
yeah.
yeah, so by my accepting that whole process took probably 10 years. That would later come in handy for my own when I can really bring all of myself to the table. And that's what her bare naked soul is really about. It's like stripping away the superfluous, stripping away all the crap. Like the stories don't matter. Like who cares? That's
You're
just
fascinating on many levels, and you know that too. So I think that's why it's one of the things that makes it good that you decided to do what you do, because you will draw people to be interested to see what it is you're doing. And I think the more people they get to see the depth of you, the more people will allow the intrigue to, grow and blossom and breathe a little bit. Yeah, I hope so too. I mean, that's why I've been looking so forward to doing this with you, because we've talked so many times, but I say this all the time. When I talk to somebody in this format, I can go so much deeper. I mean, we can really, I can ask you questions now that I wouldn't ask you ordinarily. It just wouldn't be appropriate.
I'm seeing that right now.
but but what we really are getting to know is you, and hopefully we're doing it in a way that's honoring you. This whole thing with your mom, are you resolved with the whole situation, or is there still more that you'd like to learn? Or
You know, it's funny. Like I feel like I'm resolved, but I know that can never be true, that we all have wounds that little close to the surface, and we live with them. So actually, it's funny, I'm feeling emotional suddenly because if I think of what I would like, the fantasy of a little girl being taken care of being safe, all this stuff, it exists and it affects me to this day. Now, if I live in a way that focuses on that pain, then I will cripple myself. Um, but it is tight to the surface, so I'm very careful with the topic to see it in a way that's loving and hopeful. So the good side of this wounding is that it puts me closer to humanity. For instance, when pain is at my back door all the time, it's hard for me not to recognize that in other people. And I feel like that's my draw. I feel like that's what people are really responding to in me when I do writing, photos, whatever I'm sharing, is they feel me and I feel them. That pain has given me a gift of relating to the depth of my own humanity, which now includes everyone else.
You know, here's the thing. I mean, what you just said, that's really deep. That's really, really deep. Do you let yourself, do you give yourself the room and the availability to just cry or just like feel sorry for yourself? Like, just like let all that, all those, like you don't always have to be strong through all of this stuff. Eventually, ultimately, we do. But a lot of times to really get there, you got to let yourself just cry it out or let the vulnerability really be so you can get to the
It's
bottom.
hard for me to do that, and it looks different. So it looks different for everybody else, but mine looks like this. So I may not know that I'm in pain. I'm just like muscling myself through life, right? Force, force, force. Go, go, go. But I'm becoming more conscious that when I didn't shower for 3 days and I don't feel like it, I don't want to really get dressed. I don't not I won't eat. That old wound is at the surface. It means that I'm feeling pretty all these raw feelings. But I'm only now recognizing these struggles with depression I've had my entire life as that wound is coming to the surface. So if I wouldn't now do what you suggest, just cry it out, then I wouldn't have to struggle to get out of bed for 3 days. If I could just go straight to the wound and give it some love, have some tears, um,
Just nurture yourself or allow yourself to be nurtured, whatever. Like to allow yourself to feel whatever it is you're feeling. Like it's hard when you're on your own because if you get that vulnerable, then you're susceptible to all kinds of stuff. So you got to stay strong, which is ultimately what we have to do. But I just when it comes to healing, that kind of gets in the way.
yeah, and I came back from Indonesia to America, and I'm in the small town I went to high school in. And I don't think this is no accident. So I'm doing the most heavy lifting of the work I'm doing right now, as far as my own business and self development. But why am I here? Because I have a group of female friends that go back to 9 years old, go even further back, who knew me in the best of times and the worst of times. And it really honestly feels like I feel circled up. So I'm very supported and I'm allowing it for the first time, maybe in my entire life. I'm
Yeah.
allowing that support to envelop me and I'm accepting it for the first time in my life and admitting that I
Do,
think
do,
I do need people.
yeah, but don't you think that's a result of maybe being over in Bali and being by yourself for so long and being isolated in every sense in a way, right? That gives you a lot of you handled it great though. I mean, you did this voluntarily by choice. This was your thing to do, but you really delved into a lot.
It's my nature over the years of my life that I would withdraw. So it was a defense mechanism. I was just a defense mechanism, but it was also healing at the same time. So I'm doing something unknowingly that's healing my soul. I once moved to an island uh, that had 1,000 people on it. There's only one way on that island. It's a 45-minute ferry. It ran intermittently, like 3 days a week. You could not come see me. and then Bali. Now I'm even further removed. I'm done isolating now. I think I did enough. Like, I'm back.
Right, but where you are is a result of having to do that. Like you really went
Yeah.
to the belly of the beast in order to come out there and find your way right now. To be in this place you're in now, to say, you know what, I want to be where I went to high school. Like you're just more accepting because you really got into it for a while.
Yeah, that's true.
Cathy, you had mentioned earlier you were dancing, strip clubs, right?
Yeah.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm coming at you from a different perspective too on this whole part of life, right?
Right.
Strippers are not taken seriously by a lot of people that, excuse me, by men and women. Like you're just so threatening to so many people on so many levels when you're in that power, right?
Sure.
That you're just dismissed. Am I right? But
Correct.
there's women that just don't want to, like, that aren't open to what to that whole thing, and they feel however they feel about it, but it's not going to be welcoming, right?
Sure.
I'm generalizing here for sure.
Yeah.
When if when that's the case, did you come up against that? I'm sure is my first question.
Absolutely. I mean, it was an art form, but yeah, it's absolutely dismissed. But here's the thing: when we feel our gift is wrong, it's bad, it's dirty, we dismiss ourselves first. So whatever is being reflected to me in behavior of others, I agree with them. So when I'm treated badly or talked down to or dismissed, I have already done that in my own head to myself all day long. So we're all in agreement. I felt like a piece of crap. And I believed this was so bad because other people told me that. It's being expressed in a toxic environment with toxic mindset. That's a problem. Not for just myself, for society, for us all. So yeah, it was reflective of that mindset, of my own mindset of guilt, shame,
Yeah,
fear.
and the reason I asked that question is you had mentioned earlier about not really having your voice, like having not felt heard, I guess, right? Or being able
Right,
to even express yourself to be heard.
right.
I just feel like that's kind of the perfect place to go, coming from what you experienced before that. Like that's almost it's almost predetermined. You're gonna that the odds are good you could find your way into that field. Now you also are a high energetic girl. There's a lot of you might be introspective in many ways, but you're also high energy. So you got a lot of really strong factors that that
Right.
you're made up of. So when you find yourself in that, it's part of your journey.
Yeah.
But you can't even own that yet. When you're doing it, you're just saying, "I'm owning all this negativity that comes with it." I'm not the dancer that's kind of creating and expressing. No, you're like you're accepting the stigma that comes with
Yeah.
that word from conditioned people, right?
Right.
So I mean, that only it almost fuels the negative fire in you.
Yeah. Back in the day. I mean, I think it's almost kind of funny now, like to have had a 12-year career, and it's a big chunk of life. But my adopted family and I have never had a conversation about it. That is taboo.
Do they
You know,
know?
yeah, I know that they do. Yeah, they know. Well, it's just something, you can choose not to know.
Well,
So
no.
I
Once
get
you
it.
know, you know. They just choose not to ever bring it up.
Yeah, it's so taboo, you know, in that culture, that religious culture. So fearful.
Yeah, Cathy, I went through my own thing. We've talked so many times. I mean, with drugs and stuff, and it's no different. I mean, you chose your way to deal with your issues. I chose my way to deal with my issues. It's really not. There's really no judgment that can go either way. If I'm being honest,
Yeah,
or if you are being honest, one is not better than the other. It's just it's a different form of expressing that's what I was doing. I was expressing my angst. I was not cool with what was happening in my head and what I saw, around me.
Right.
And I didn't, and I'm not saying I handled it the right way, but that's what I handled. That's how I handled it. That's how I dealt with it. I shouldn't even say I handled it. I didn't handle it, but that's how I chose to deal with it. So for
Yeah.
whatever reason, what that did for me was that takes away my ability, if I'm being honest with myself, to judge you, to judge other people who have issues with alcohol or drugs or gambling. Or, I just know, the dial can be tweaked 1 degree either direction and the story's dramatically different in time.
Right.
It's just that little bit. And we're all so vulnerable, and we're all subjected to wherever we're born into and whatever conditioning we get from those who teach us and all the circumstances that we have, that it's also frail and fragile, but you went through a lot of stuff, man. I mean, wow, a
Yeah.
lot. So when it gets to how much of where you are now is a result of that part of your life when you were dancing and experiencing, because you were learning, like did you know what you were doing and why you were doing it?
No, it's natural to me, the dancing, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a natural expression. So I was born with the gift of dance, and sexuality was a natural expression. And I had no idea that it ran in my family. My aunt was a fairly well-known burlesque performer, I believe in the 40s, 50s, and just we have amazing footage of her and photos. But she, I think, believe was in Baltimore. Her stage name was Peggy Clark. And this was like the Blaze Star era, this old-fashioned burlesque. And then my grandmother.
Now this was your mom's
Also,
sister?
yes,
Okay.
yes, my mother's sister. And then grandma was also I can't remember what they called it in the 50s, but she was a stripper too. So we're looking at a family legacy.
That's a lot to unpackage. Because you didn't know that when you started to dance, did you?
I had no idea.
Right.
I didn't find out until I was retired.
So it's not like you're following the lineage. You find yourself there, and then you find out that, oh, these generations before me have ventured in the same direction.
Yeah, it brought a lot of spirituality and science. So I learned about epigenetics. I learned that you don't have to have ever met your genetic family. They absolutely imprint you. And then it's your choices that determine how that imprint will express. Do you want it to be for good? Will it be in a way that is harmful to you and others, or life affirming? That's our choice now, but it will be there. So, yeah.
This other venture that you're about to launch come February, her.barenaked.soul, is your website. Why don't you talk about what your plan is for that?
I was still holding back some of my dancing as far as shame, and so I did more inner work and more healing and more self introspection. And I really wanted to share the last two songs of my dances that are always heavily censored or never shown to the public because they're sexual. And so the website basically is an invitation to enjoy those last two dances and any other photography that I do, also writing. So I've written quite a bit of erotica and was doing that since I was a kid, and then I'd hide it away. And so that will come out as well. And different sexual explorations just in the philosophies and maybe some politics. That's what the website will be, something enjoyable and also educational.
I honor your journey. I do, because I respect you. And I love the fact that you really got the chutzpah, is the word I'll use, to actually really just embrace this and then put it out there and just put it out, give it to the universe, and wherever it's supposed to go. But I want this is in saying that the question is, a lot of people hold that part of themselves dear and personal, and that's not for anybody else to know, but then except for who they decide to share that with. So there's that conflict between what you're doing and how a lot of people see what you're doing. Do
Right.
you ever get conflicted with that at all?
Sure. I've passed. I call it the bridges. So to self actualization. Maybe 1 week ago, I had a thought enter my head, and I was like kicking around the idea of the website launch. Wasn't sure. This was the thought that whatever I want to do, I must do in the light of day. There can be no shame attached. That means if I do this website, I'm not going to only advertise in the back some dirty magazine. I'll hold my head down. So I knew then that whatever I do in this life, I have to do it loud and do it up and be proud of myself. And that was the last bridge. As soon as I crossed it,
But the message that you're giving out there is to honor your own sexual expression.
yeah, honor your sexuality, honor human sexuality. Also, begin the waves of change in the world with these other women who are pioneers in female sexuality. It's a big part of feminism. I think they call it the third wave feminism, but it's an acceptance of when you accept female sexuality in a holistic way, suddenly patriarchy, the chains start loosening. And it's just a real soft approach to changing the world. Just, me being myself. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, not buying into the dogma, the shame. I laugh it off now.
Yeah. So what is the greatest gift that your journey and the journey that you're on now has provided you with?
Self love.
And
Yeah,
how do
there's
you
no greater.
define self-love? What is that to you?
That, like we talked about my mother and me, you know, loving her mugshots just as much as the fancy picture with these rock stars, and loving my whole self, owning all of it, taking that utter responsibility because I love myself, and not allowing anyone, anybody's thoughts, anybody's ideas, any system, any religion, any societal beliefs to step in the way of my compassion for myself. That's the biggest gift ever.
Right on about that. I mean, who could possibly knock that? Wow.
It's been a ride.
What is the term to you? What does sacred sexuality mean to you when you hear sacred sexuality?
It means to me, real simple, that I don't really like that term. I know it's big in the new age era, but it just means that sexuality being expressed authentically, um, and that says it all right there. So I don't. It's an authentic sexual expression. Um,
So you would say authentic instead of not use the word sacred?
Sacred sexuality is when we see sexuality in a holistic view. That means it's not like looking at a magazine and objectifying it and throwing it away, or treating human beings in this way the way we've been taught to treat sexuality is that it's disposable, it's to sell things, it's toxic. Sacred sexuality has gone beyond that now, that it's an innate part of our humanity. It is as real as our beating hearts. It is just as important as all of our other bodily functions, spiritually and base and physically. And seeing it and bringing it back into our consciousness.
Is it more intimate, and is it procreation and other things that are deeper in the cycle of life that come as a result of that make it not like any other bodily function? It's a little more profound than that, wouldn't you say?
Well, it doesn't have to be. So that's what's cool. just like our humanity, just like if we go back to my mother's analogy about the mugshot and the rock stars, sex is the same thing. It's absolutely fine if you come to a beautiful image in your mind or whatever, and you have sexual pleasure from that. That's on one level physical only. Is that wrong? No. Is that enjoyable? Yeah. Or you go way on the other end of this far other end of the spectrum, and you're using sex to consciously create another life. Which is better? Neither. They're all the same. They're same importance. So when we make one villainize one and deify one part of sex, this is okay, but that's not okay.
I'm saying in general, just to say, just to treat sexuality as when I again, what do I know? But when I hear the word sacred sexuality, it just adds a little depth, a little more
Yes.
purpose, a little more, So, and that doesn't mean that every act should be that way or anything like that. I'm just saying that I think that what that does for women is if they can see it that way, it can be empowering where you can welcome and embrace more of your sexuality and than to, you know, look at it as some kind of, something less than that. Like it's a word
So
that could honor it as opposed to,
yeah,
you know,
my little like this gift that was brought to my attention about my own sexuality was that sexuality, what my work does is I connect that energy, sexual energy, back to the heart energy. So now you're a holistic, it's a whole human being. Um, this is a new way to see sexuality in our culture. It's been severed from the heart. And so that's what I do. I bring it back together, and that would be completely considered sacred sexuality.
so do you think that in your exploration between the dance and your sexual expression through dance, right? Has that enabled you to find a voice that you can like a lot of the voice is from the conditioning that we have. It's stuffed so far down and it's piled up on by all this years of conditioning and circumstance in life that to get now when you're ready to dig deep and get into some stuff, it's not so easy to just go down there and get it. Some of the stuff you can't even remember because it goes back so many decades and it's buried so like perfectly that it's really hard to find. And so we don't even know to look for it. Like conditioning is really complex,
Right.
but it's usually through drugs, through pain, through trauma, and also through sexuality, where we get lost in inhibition and stuff comes out.
Yes.
People say things, they say truth serum, alcohol, truth
Yeah.
serum. You'll say things when you're drunk, right? On and on with all different things, right? But when you're into your sexuality, you're really unleashing so much of the the stuff that inhibits us from, you know, finding even what our purpose might be. Like, we don't even look for it. It's like we're too busy working and paying this and in that doldrum bullshit, right? That to really go
Right.
deep and find out, like, what is it emotionally that's blocking you from success, or why do you keep sabotaging your journey? People go through all of these searches and journeys. Sexuality is a large component often in breaking that shit up and
It
and and then letting us
absolutely is. Yeah.
find ourselves.
So I do coaching and mentoring in sacred sexuality, but what you just said is using sexuality as an energy to clear these blocks, using the
Yeah.
sexuality specifically in self pleasure, um, but really letting it is powerful. And it does bring to the surface things that are ready to be cleared quickly. And there's a lot of healing potential there and beauty. So, yeah, I do have begun to act as a guide in that way quite recently.
There's tantric retreats all over the world, in specific parts. Bali, there's, probably one on every
Yeah.
corner, right? Costa
Yeah.
Rica, places like this where it's really a predominant mindset where people go because they're ready to
Yeah.
break through, right?
Mhm.
But again, that's often a way that's used. Like people try ayahuasca, people try all these plant-based medicines, and there's so many different ways of people can go there. But there's also this way through tantra, through different forms of sexual exploration that you can just get rid of what's inhibiting us from being able to get to whatever it is has been traumatizing us.
Yeah. It's like acts as like sexuality acts as a mirror to where we hold shame in our body. So like I just did that Facebook Live the other day, but I just told the funny story of when I went to the sex shop and when I was, I'm a grown woman. I can be in there, but I had so much conditioned shame suddenly
Yeah.
pop up, and I just noticed it. So the sexuality acted like a mirror, so I could see where in my body I was still afraid, and then I could go home and be like, wow, like not judgmental, but just look at the feelings that came up and sit with them and let them be in my body and give them some love and acceptance. When you do that, then they dissipate.
Okay, so what'd you get at the store?
Uh, I ran out. I did a right race walk out of there. I was like, I don't need any. But I'm going back. Actually, I was actually looking for yoni eggs and yoni wands, but they didn't have any. Small town.
Somebody said to me the other day, like, how many people are you going to talk to about this? You have your slant on your experience. Like you have your version of because your experience in your life is taking you in the direction it is, and you're unique from everyone else, and everyone's unique from everyone else. So everybody has there's little differences
Yeah.
between the journeys, and it's some of it's like really profound, and what might be important to you might get lost on somebody else who takes it just as serious as you,
Right.
but they're not, like, for whatever reason their dynamic is different, so it plays out a little differently, that's all.
Another flavor. I mean, no one can ever get tired talking about sex. That's the elixir of life.
There you go.
This is what makes the world go round. Are you kidding me? No, no one will get tired of talking about sex.
She's found her
Everyone
voice, ladies and
who
gentlemen.
talks
She has
about it,
found her voice.
right? Come on, fact.
Yeah, it's true. You're right. You're right. So, what is it ultimately like? Where are you at right now in your journey? Exactly where we sit in this conversation today. Where are you at?
I'm working on a lot of trust recently and a collaboration and interdependence. This is the new stage I'm at in my life to get this studio up and running that I believe I'm getting a key to today. To push this website out for the launch date is taking other people. Oh, man, Scott. And you know me. Like, this has been a bridge for me to cross of accepting I'm safe and that I'm supported and that interdependence is how we create. So if I think I'm, gonna do it all alone, that's ridiculous. So it was just breaking down my own walls. Right now, I'm in this process, and saying we go together. We really do. Um, so you find your old soul group, your soul family, and you walk together. So when you asked me about this, your show, I was scared and all that, like but I deep down am working on this trust that we go together. You support me, I support you, and
Yeah.
we need each other. And it's so hard for me to say, right? Because I grew up saying, fuck off, I don't need you. But that's not really going to get me to where I want to be in life. So it's not part of my book. I'm really getting this vibration out of my body, letting it go. Like it's very street tough, but I'm softening. So that's where I'm at today. I'm softening.
Listen, let me share some with you, Cathy, because I've told you this before, but just to really drive the point home a little bit is that one of the things that drew me to you is the fact that you remind me so much of one of my dearest friends, so much, and just your story and the way you have this, like, this lust for life, this kind of like this childlike way, and it's so fun, but there's a lot of depth, a lot of real depth, and a lot of pain. You basically wear it on your sleeves. You're not really trying all that hard to mask it. You really you're okay, and you're doing great with it too. Unfortunately, with my friend, she just died like 2 years ago, and the end was tough, but she was a great girl, man. We became roommates, and I'll tell you something funny about her too. I met her at a recovery meeting. I never forget this. The topic of the meeting was about powerlessness, and I remember being down. You talk about the Greenwich Village, and this at St. Mark's Place. I was at a meeting, and that's like the most raw meeting in New York. This at St. Mark's, and there was the same topic at a meeting one time, and this guy goes, "Powerless, man, getting high, man, is like fucking a gorilla. You don't stop when you want to stop. You stop when the gorilla lets you up." I was like,
This is true.
yes,
True.
everybody's flawed. Everybody's laughing so hard. It's like because it's so raw. But yes, it's true.
Yeah.
You've surrendered the control, man. It's up to the gorilla's got the control. That's it, pal. Now, this topic is at this meeting out in Sherman Oaks in California, and I'm out there, and I said I put my hand up. I figure I'm going to get a good laugh with this one, and I'm going to repeat that story, and you can hear a pin drop. Nobody gets it. Nobody laughs. Nobody responds. Reacts. Zero. Nothing. And there's just a dead silence and a pause. And all of a sudden, this girl puts her hand up, and she goes, "You know that gorilla? I fucked him."
I love her.
I like her, man.
So-
We wound up becoming really best friends. We were roommates for years out there. Like our first time we went out, we went to this pizza place to get pizza, and they closed. The guy locked the door like as we got to the door. And now this is LA. That means you got to get back in the car, and who knows where you're going to find another pizza place that's open. She just goes. She bangs on the door. It's a glass, like a big, big glass door. And she just picks her shirt up. She had these huge tits, and she just put her tits in the window. The guy comes right out with the key, opens the door. "Come on in, we'll made a supply." I'm going, "This is great." Look at this. "I got you." She goes, "I got you." But we just became good friends, and she would share stuff with me that nobody knows. Nobody knows. And she came from a really a tough upbringing, man. Really, really. Her pain was real, man. It was real, 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 real. And I'll tell you something else. She invited me to her wedding, and I was getting high at the time. I had relapsed, and we met in recovery, and I had relapsed. When she invited me to her wedding, because she didn't have a father, my friend Jonathan was supposed to walk her down the aisle, and I was supposed to dance Daddy's Little Girl with her. And I didn't even respond to the invitation, never mind show up to the wedding. And I didn't go, and I was on a run that was bad, and I got evicted from an apartment and all this stuff. Just, I was just at another one of my bottoms. There was many of them, but that was one of them. And she came and found me at this place, and she put me in the car, and she had just come back from her honeymoon, and I didn't even go to her wedding. She goes, "You're staying with us." And the next thing you know, like they have an apartment in Pacific Palisades, and they gave me a room. I'm with these newlyweds. I mean, talk about the third wheel, like the ultimate third wheel. This was
Right.
But that's the kind of friend she was. They made me watch the wedding one night, the film of the wedding. And she takes the microphone, and she says to everybody, "Scott, this is for you wherever you are." And she danced all by herself, Daddy's Little Girl. And I'd lost it, man. I was so ashamed of myself for being such a fucking lowlife. This is a friend.
Yeah.
It's like my best friend. And I didn't even and you think that would have stopped me. I had still a half a dozen relapses left in me from that. A lot of really, real poignant things happened to me. And then she got sick and she died 2 Christmases ago. And it's we don't all get this opportunity, Cathy. Like this is why I'm really proud of you. You're really taking this challenge of finding it out, man, and digging deep and finding out who you are. And you're really deep. I mean, we didn't even get into your Hawaii and your spirituality, and that it goes really, really deep. And you've had a real keen insight to that throughout your whole story. Like, I personally think that's what kept you going. Because you didn't say fuck it. You didn't get taken in by the drugs. There were a lot of rabbit holes you didn't go down. And I don't know how.
Right.
Other than it was just a spiritual
It's
thing
a
with you.
miracle.
Like you had that, to
Yeah.
keep you, somehow directed and guided.
Oh yeah, I do relate to your friend. I mean, with the topless, like I can remember like getting out a parking ticket. Okay, this mentality, right? And I remember the friend I was with in the car. She looks at me after we get out of the parking garage. We lost the ticket, and I flashed him. She looks at me. She's serious. She's like, Cathy, I can't believe you did that. I feel so bad. And I looked at her. This is my mentality. I was like, what? I saved us $20, right? I was like, I'm fine. And look at the guy. He's so happy. I did a good service. This is how I thought. Now, I'm not, this is years ago, but there was a lightheartedness too in the dark too. That it's like, believe me, that's not the worst of what I've ever seen. That was so.
That's a
Just
very
the way
good
that we
point.
keep each other, our lights on, we keep our lights on in our heart, and we don't make we focus on the humor of something that helps. And of course, we all have these spirit guides that we don't know, we don't see. And we get to live as long as we get to live and do, what we're here to do. Like your friend obviously was here for so many reasons, but you're a big one, to love you. And we just keep loving and show up, right?
You know what
Show
happened
up.
last Christmas? A lot of friends I have out there are in one way or another a direct result from her. Like, like we became fast friends, and then I would just start meeting people, and she introduced me to a friend Darren. Her friend Darren, me and Darren became friends, but not like really great friends. Hang out, Darren he was on another level. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do out there, and he was already, very ultra successful and everything, right? But last Christmas Eve, she died on Christmas Eve a year ago. A year ago, last Christmas, so last Christmas Eve would have been 1 year since of the day she died, and I put up a thing for little Sophie, the little girl that and it was just to see if we can get some money to get her some extra Christmas presents and stuff because she wasn't going to really get much, And I got her a few things, but maybe we could see if anybody wanted to help out and give more. And I put a goal of like $500, and I got about like 200 some dollars. And then on Christmas Eve, Darren sends me a message. He goes, "Is this you?" He goes, "Because there's a lot of scams out there. Is this you or not?" And I said, "Yeah, it's for little Sophie." $500 right there. And then like less than 5 minutes later, some other guy, Darren says it's good. Here's 100. So boom, we were up to like $800-900 in like that. And I just remember looking up and going, Sendo, it was like,
Yeah.
I see that, and I don't want to make too much of all of this stuff, but there's certain things that you just think, come on, man,
Right?
and they're
Yes.
little things that just make you pay attention a little bit more, if nothing
Yeah.
else. There's something to it. And she was a spiritual. She wasn't religious at all.
Right.
She was a good soul, misguided, undirected, and all of that. But she still, despite you know so much she was going, she had a really good heart and a really good soul, and damaged as a motherfucker. But despite the damage, she was that good, and nobody. She didn't walk out of a room without. And this is another thing that you remind me of her in this way too. When she walks into a room, by the time she walks out, everybody knows she was in that room. Yeah, no, it's a great thing. It's really great. It's a natural quality. That's great. You got that. You know that.
The lust for life stuff.
Yeah. But it's a soul thing, don't you think? It's a soul thing.
Yeah. It is vibrational. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so.
With this journey that you're on, what's your objective here now? What is Her Bare Naked Soul? That's gonna debut on Valentine's Day, right? What is that gonna be about?
Ooh, a lot of lust. So a lot of beauty, education, and this year is really about a celebration of life. And I keep thinking, what are the words you said? Lust for life. I think you just tagged this tagline there because that is. I want to step out from the shadow of my past and truly celebrate all that I am as a woman, as an intellectual, as a philosopher, as a sexual being. And that will all be on that website. And there will be no room for shame or criticism. So I really got to bring my whole self to the table. So this year is about celebrating who I am and my gifts, inviting others to celebrate with me. And man, this is even hard to say because I had a past like your friends, but to enjoy my life. Well, instead of making it this struggle, suffering, overcoming constantly, focusing on drama, on trauma, on damage, no more. It really feels like it is time to let go of this mindset of trauma and step into one of celebration and receiving and collaboration and friendship and really expand these ideas as far out as I am meant to into the world. So wow, that's what I'm doing. Yeah.
You know, drugs and alcohol, there's sometimes they spin us out of control. So we wind up in places we don't really know how we got there. It might have started out a little innocent, but there we are. Sexuality is a different ball game. It's not like that mind altering. It is mind altering in a sense, but it's not as dramatically negatively impactful. But the reason that you pick sexuality to be your voice, like, and how you're going to, like, you know, what did you suffer like trauma, like sexual trauma? The reason I ask is not a reflection necessarily on you, but other girls I've talked to about this, they've addressed their trauma, their sexual trauma. Some of it's deep, really, really, really deep, and they've come out on the other side. And that, I just think, is there's no greater accomplishment to be able to embrace it after real fucking damage. So and I see you embracing it with such an enthusiasm. That's why I asked that question.
This truly is my destiny because I ask myself that a million times when you end up in sex work, sexuality, anything of that nature. That's the first thing people think, and it's natural. But no, um, I have had sexual trauma that doesn't really. It's no different than any woman growing up in our modern culture. So there's nothing that stands out and said, "Oh, whoa," never had a rape kit, never needed one. Um, but I did have the, you know, just no, it's not comparable to true victims of crime or something of that nature, or molestation or something like that. But when I talked earlier about epigenetics, when you look at sex workers in my family for this many generations, and this informing who I think that I am, that alone you're born into trauma. Like, you believe you're worthless. You believe your sexuality is a bane on society. You believe, that's what I believed about myself, that you are worth $1 if, you know? So to come back from these beliefs and come to the other end where I can say, I feel my sexuality is divine and I deserve respect and honor. And so do you, for everybody. That was transfers a lot of the family epigenetics. Um, yeah, and I also believe spiritually, like, spirit knows how much we can take. If that sort of incident may have happened to me, I would maybe not be here today. That might have pushed me over the edge. But I had this adoptive family that was so sexually repressive that, I mean, we couldn't say the word tampon in the house. We refer
That
to
paints the picture pretty
genitals
clear enough
as
if you can't say the word
hoochie-coochie.
tampon.
Right.
Wow.
But this ultra repressive household, the gift of it was that it kept me safe. So now I'm scared, right? I was scared of boys growing up. But it made this circle around me. So when you have wild sexuality naturally, expressing that way naturally, it created a fence system. When I was ready and capable of handling my own sexual expression in a way that honors myself and others and the world, I came out of the fence. But until that time, I believe it was in place, didn't feel good, but I believe now, looking back, it helped me. So all the pain is always can come be looked at from both angles. If you can move on.
You know what, Cathy? I applaud you because your ability to be so honest has got to avail itself to somebody that just needs to hear from you or talk to you. Like there's got to be women out there that just because you are who you are is going to give them the right to be who they are. I mean, just they just have to hear you or they just have to somehow experience you. You know what I mean? So that they can say, "Wow." And you know it's great. Like when you said no, there wasn't an actual violation as trauma, but to say trauma over in a cumulative form, just whatever. And maybe you don't even have to give it the word trauma. I just think that trauma doesn't have to be as dramatic as people make it to be. It can be sometimes pretty subtle, but nevertheless, the need for you to just address this part of your right to just express yourself should be enough. So if people can't dig that, then I don't know what to say. But you're a pioneer here in a sense.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a group of women in the world rising right now, considered pioneers in sacred sexuality and bringing this to the forefront of our consciousness and um, bringing attention to it in a way that's healthy, good.
I'm gonna wrap this up with one question for you. What do you want?
What do I want?
Break that down.
Ease. So right now I'm the mindset of ease. So I know everything we see outside of ourselves, we've created, we have generated. So I want ease now. Flow. And I am now open to abundance. I'm now open to receiving and and really just moving into this new way of seeing myself as a successful, brilliant woman instead of a hood rat stealing cigarettes from 7-Eleven. So I'm reconciling, I'm crossing over, saying, actually, I deserve ease. I've done my time, and I don't need to hold on to that kid so hard anymore and protect that kid and tell everyone, fuck off, I don't need your help. And actually, I could use some help. So, I'm doing a lot of new things here. I'm ready to step into my new shoes. I've never worn them before, so I was pretty scared today. I was like, this was significant somehow to talk to you today. I knew it meant something important spiritually and in every realm. So thank you.
Thank you. I just want to close with this and tell you this, that when you just said, I did my time, after hearing your story now, for anybody that has just heard this and gets to know you a little bit deeper, there's certain people that can say any simple tagline or something like that, but it just means so much more because of who you are that's saying it, right? There's a line in a song, Keith Richards, who is, is there, more famous like drug addict? I mean, he's a great musician, but what is he really known for, right? Just being the anti, every time somebody dies, the headline is always Keith Richards is still alive,
Right? Yeah.
But it's a line in his song, and he goes, "I'm going to find my way to heaven because I did my time in hell." And when he says that, because of when he says it, it resonates with me because it's him saying it, so it means what it means, right? And then and just paralleled with what you just said, like I did my time. You did.
Yeah.
You clearly did. So you have earned this right to explore and to find out what you've already found and whatever you're going to continue to find. And I applaud you. This is an honor for me. So, and we haven't even scratched the surface.
We just got started.
Yeah. So, listen, thank you very much, for your time. And I want to do this again. Where do people that want to follow you, how do they find you? And
there's now a landing page for this new website. It'll be on my Facebook. So after, I'll put it up. And it's just a link you can put in your email address. And as soon as that launch hits on Valentine's Day, people will be sent an email and they can go to this website. Until then, I'm a Facebook maven.
Yeah. Cathy Reed, right? Reed, Cathy Reed on Facebook. And what about Instagram or any other?
Her.barenaked.soul.
her.barenaked.soul on Instagram?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, thank you so much, Cathy, for your raw honesty and your intuitive nature and for being so open, sharing it. And you're the best.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. We'll do it again real soon.